Hi and welcome to Whisky Shared. You're watching my review of Compass Box The Spice Tree. I'm Toby and you're watching Whisky Shared. Welcome to my review of Compass Box The Spice Tree. If you're not familiar with Compass Box in the world of whisky, then you come to the right place. I'll give you a little introduction, but you may already know a bit about them. Compass Box are, I suppose, an independent bottler. They've been going around for 20 years now, and what they specialise in is blended whiskies. So they don't just take whiskies from distilleries and age them and bottle them. What they do is they try to make them into unique blends that they can recreate again and again, using the stock from other distilleries. The Spice Tree is also known as the illegal whisky or the illegal malt because they went against Scotch Whisky Association rules by creating something that was classed as non-traditional. What they did was they put inner staves from French oak barrels inside their ex-bourbon barrels, and yeah, the Scotch Whisky Association didn't like that. So after a little while they decided, how can we get that sort of same flavour profile? So what they did was they worked with coopers to make barrels that had French oak heads, and the main staves were from ex-bourbon or ex-sherry barrels. So they've come up with a flavour profile that obviously they didn't want to get rid of, and the Scotch Whisky Association wasn't going to stop that. And they've managed with their lead whisky maker, John Glasser, to keep that flavour profile alive. What goes into this whisky is not completely known, but they do give away some of its contents. So it's mostly made up of a Highland malt blend, which is varying proportions in different barrels with different toasting levels to give different flavour profiles. But it also has Clynelish whisky in there and Dalyewin whisky. So it is a blended malt, so obviously there are quite rich, intense flavours, and there's no grain whisky in this at all. Shall we find out what it tastes like? On to the whisky. Right, so before I start nosing and tasting, I will point out that this whisky is 46% ABV, it's natural colour and non-chill filtered, and it also retails for about $48.95 in the UK. You can find it for maybe £5 or £6 cheaper than that from different retailers, so it's worth shopping around to find a good price. Let's start with the nose. Right, so to start off, I do get like a bourbon note. I get that sort of brown sugar and cherry. Then there's some sort of sweet sherry notes in there. And there's like tropical fruit, like I often pick up on a lot of Scotch whiskies. There is a hint of nail polish remover, a little bit of that sort of acetone. And then I'm starting to get fruitiness like cognac. Smells like cognac. Then there's like a charred oak, quite a strong sort of charred oak nose. And then there's like a pepperiness to it. I don't get that on many whiskies on the nose, so that's quite unique. And then there's like shortbread biscuits, really sweet, buttery, creamy biscuits. Let's try it on the palate. Yeah, so for me it is quite spicy, hence the name Spice Tree. They obviously named it really well. And it's quite intense. That intensity to the spiciness is really, really quite noticeable. With that spiciness, there's things like cloves and ginger. There is the pepper that I picked up on the nose as well. But let's see what else I pick up. Let's have another sip. Yeah, so now I'm picking up the sherry notes. That sherry is slightly tannic, a little bit dry, but then that leads me to the finish, and the finish is quite long. It's quite spicy, quite peppery. That sweet sherry still lingers, obviously the tannic dry wood, and bitterness from that dry oak lingers for quite some time. Obviously, for me, I find the whiskey a little bit too spicy. That intensity is probably too much for me, and at 46 ABV, I find that I have to add a decent dash of water to this to get it to the sweet spot for me. Having a few sips now is fine, but to actually drink a whole glass of this, the intensity is too much. When you do add water, what I find is it really opens up. That spiciness is still there, but it doesn't overpower the dram. It doesn't sort of overpower your taste buds, and it really is quite pleasant and quite nice. But it's still, even with water, isn't something that I'd happily sit with for 2 or 3 glasses. It would be a single dram at a time, and that's as much as my palate can take with this. But it might be right up your street. If it is, then give it a go, and if not, hang around for the next one. See if that's more to your liking. Slauncher.
I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, why not give it a like or a comment, and please consider subscribing for more videos like this.